What's up, dudes and dudettes? How do you handle fear these days? What's your response? Do you find yourself overwhelmed? Do you curl up into a ball in fetal position? I know it's rough out here, but I just want to offer another angle in case you're a little paralyzed by everything that's going on in the world today. If you're like me in 2025, early 2025, I used to distract the hell out of myself from my fears. My specific thing was I'd play the hell out of Tekken, and I get super competitive, and I wouldn't even allow the thought of my fear to enter my mind. I put all that energy of fear into that damn game, but I got to a point where I was kind of sick of that. And I realized I wasn't living my life, and I was like, how am I going to move forward constructively and live next to this fear? And this took a radical change in my perception, but once I got going, it seemed seamless. And that really came down to, rather than viewing my fears as something to be threatened by, viewing them as a challenge to be overcame. And in doing so, I adopted, rather than having such an anxious and stressed out disposition, I became more generally determined and sometimes even excited to confront my fears once I realized what lies on the other side of that. And for the most part, on the other side of your fears is growth, no matter what the case may be, whether it's a job interview, moving to a different state, or confronting the reality of societal collapse in the modern world. There's always growth on the other side of confronting your fears, no matter how big or small. And, you know, it's a real thing. It's philosophical in nature, but the reality of it is very literal. I know we all know of post-traumatic stress disorder. Sometimes our traumas unavoidably manifest themselves in horrible ways. But if you can tap into your fear in a conscious way, or any bad moment in your life really, and actively move through it with a means of overcoming it and growing from it, you can trigger something that's, well, literally post-traumatic growth. And it's a philosophical concept with real life ramifications, but it actually manifests itself in a very physical way. Not only in confronting your fears and pursuing growth are you opening up new pathways in your life, opening doors that would have otherwise remained shut, but you're also creating new neurological pathways in your brain. And when you confront your fears, you show yourself that you can overcome, and that instills you with a level of confidence and resolve and security that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And aside from the neurological pathways in your mind, your cellular composition actually changes. You develop more mitochondria, and your cells start to produce antioxidants that are far stronger than any supplement you could get in a pharmacy. It's a real thing. And your body becomes more energetically efficient and resilient in tackling tasks and confronting your fears, confronting that fight or flight response. The fear will never go away. It's always going to be there. So it's a matter of deciding consciously, will you let it rule your life, or will you harness it and use it to become a better version of yourself? You know, we're in an anxiety epidemic, rightfully so. All this constant shit going on, right? But the one good thing about that is it provides us with an endless sea of material to engage in what I kind of consider to be fear resilience exercises. You know, our ancestors didn't have that luck. Their fear exercises involved fighting lions and shit, and literally risking their life when they had to confront their fears. So not much room for failure in that regard. But in this case, a lot of our fears and anxieties are, for the moment, kind of far removed, for most of us at least, as far as what the future holds. And I guess the example I would give is that my big fear in 2025, when I mentioned I was going through it, was the idea of what AI could do to us as time went on. All the ramifications of AI, joblessness, stunting our intellectual growth, Just all the ways it would change us really freaked me out. And I only overcame it by doing the deep-seated research into understanding what the pros are saying, what the depth of this problem really is. Rather than keeping it in a black box and being afraid of the reality of it, I confronted it. And in confronting the reality, the goal is to become well acquainted with it so you can live beside it, but also so that you can be practical about how you can impact change. Of course, a lot of these issues are too large for any one of us to enact tangible impact, but it all starts with one person and things can grow. So depending on what your fear is, whether it's food sustainability because we're being poisoned and supply chains are shaky, or the idea of world war, or the ramifications of constant, incessant propaganda and disinformation. Do that research, dude. Do that research. Come up with means in which you can impact change on a local level. Become an advocate through either creating content and raising awareness, or maybe even campaigning for people in your local area that care about these issues, or running for an office if that's something you're equipped to do. And if you don't feel like you can actually start impacting change in a reasonable way, focus on becoming someone who can. If it has to do with food sustainability, learn how to fish. Start gathering people to foster communal food initiatives. If it has to do with advocacy, practice your public speaking in the shower, in the mirror. Take these steps to just becoming that person who will be able to tackle these issues. Because if you're lying down in fetal position, you're not going to do much tackling of anything, dude. So just take those steps. Be kind to yourself. Post-traumatic growth is the goal. Of course, we don't want to always be doing research into these scary shit. We don't want to always be stressed out, because just like exercising a muscle, this is a muscle that has to be broken down, strengthened, and repaired. You need that recovery period. Give yourself a break, but commit to this, because life is freaky and we got to get good at wielding that fear as a weapon. Fear is a weapon. It'll either be wielded against you or it can be wielded by you. So that's really all I got. I hope this was helpful to anybody out there. I know shit is intense, dude, but humans overcome and we will continue to overcome. That's what we do. So that's all I got, guys. Peace.